Greetings, everybody. Mike Wilkerson here for the True Blood Transfusion, the Fangbanger podcast video-only fan feedback segment featuring you. I'm here today with
David Carete, host of the Fangbanger podcast.
And we just finished our review for episode 3 of the 5th season of True Blood. I'll be there for you.
Whatever I am, you made me.
Yes, and gotta tell you, giant spiral upwards.
Yes.
We're finally on track. I'm just lamenting that it takes a quarter of the episode or of the season to get our feet underneath us, and I don't care for that.
3 of 12 episodes for it the engine to finally start chugging along. It makes me wonder what they could have done with the extra 2 hours that we spent watching the setup.
Right. And see, the biggest problem I think that we're looking at there is there wasn't any mystery segment between last season's end and the beginning of the season. It was literally
the next second. Literally, yeah.
And so I especially as they hurry up and fast forward through the rest of that next day, I guess I don't understand why the actual setup took 2.5 episodes. And I guess it's what we get. Anyway, we're here to talk about fan feedback. The first thing that we have today is a thanks from the Fangbanger podcast as being the now #1 podcast this week on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Awesome.
And that's all thanks to you.
Yeah.
Remember that you can look at the top 10 of Two Guys Talking every single week by going to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com. And right underneath the front rotator that slides through all the network's content, you'll see now a listing of the different links that take you directly to the master pages for all the podcasts inside of the network. So make sure you go check that out at the front of twoguystalking.com and click liberally on the Fangbanger podcast link because it'll take you to all of our episodes. Our first news item today is, you'll love this.
Okay.
Alcide Wayne? Alcide Wayne, you say? What does that mean? You have any concept?
You've lost me, Mike.
All right. Joe Manganiello has recently been on the entire run for his being a stripper inside of Magic Mike, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, recently he started lamenting about not getting on for the new Superman reboot.
Oh, really?
Now, I have no concept of how that would have worked. He's not what I think of when I think of Superman at all.
No, but neither is the British fellow that's playing him now.
Right, but I mean, he looks awesome.
Yes, he does look good.
He looks really, really good in the suit, and I think that's going to be a very interesting take on what's going on in Superman-ness. But he lost out on that. He did not get the part of the new Superman in the reboot. But he's interested in jumping on as the Dark Knight in whatever the new Batman reboot is. What do you think of that?
Well, it could be years before we see that.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
The scuttlebutt I hear about where Warner Brothers is trying to take their DC properties is to do sort of an Avengers thing. So
why wouldn't they? After Avengers making S-load of money,
$1 billion
why wouldn't
plus.
it not? Yeah.
Henry Cavill's Superman and whomever becomes the new Batman, perhaps Ryan Reynolds, Green Lantern, and then being a seg into perhaps a Wonder Woman and or a Flash.
Yeah. Or if they happen
as well, those properties.
Yeah.
So seeing Joe become the new Bruce Wayne, I don't have a problem with that.
I would like to see it. I think that between where he is now physically and where he has been previously, there is a leaner, meaner, chiseled Joe somewhere that can be found that would work in that part.
Yeah.
And that's actually where we're going to ask you guys. It has nothing to do with True Blood except that it happens to be Joe Manganiello.
Sure.
But we'd like to know what you think. Remember, you can go to our website over at fangbangerpodcast.com, click on the contact button on the top right side of the page, fill out the quick web form, and let us know what you think. Is Joe going to be the next Batman? Could he be the next Batman? If there's someone out there inside of Hollywood that you think could be the next Batman, you guys tell us who it is, and we'll talk about it here on the True Blood Transfusion. Our next piece of feedback is to talk a little bit about the gauntlet. You'll remember last episode that we talked about the Two Guys Talking feedback gauntlet.
Extensively.
On and on and on. But shortly here, the gauntlet is your opportunity to win $100. All you've got to do is tell us what you think and a couple of clicks. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other program that I'm aware of that provides you cash for what you telling people what you think of their program. Well, we are the one. And so we want you to go over to anything at twoguystalking.com, actually. Any property that we have there that you can listen to, you tell us what you think of that. inside of the feedback form.
Sure.
You click on a couple of likes inside of your Facebook presence,
Yep.
and you're in the running for $100 cash. Remember, you can get all the details that you need to over at twoguystalking.com/gauntlet for all the details that you need, whether it's the clicks, the feedback, the links to do all of that. It's all over there at twoguystalking.com/gauntlet. Our next piece of fan feedback is from Tanny B in the DC metro area. Tanny writes, "Hey guys, just a quick note here that you need to rectify. You keep mentioning that Eric and Nora are biological siblings.
Oh, it will never die.
And how gross you found to sing that as they kept groping each other. It did a bit more than just groping, but meh, okay. Anyway, I'm writing to tell you they, period, are, period, not, exclamation point. I guess you were too busy gagging over the makeout session to hear Nora say that they weren't actual siblings and that they both were turned by Godric.
Okay.
Thank you very much." I love how I didn't realize I was making that big a deal out of it, but it's become the next gauntlet for us to brave.
It's been the only thing people talk about, Mike.
But it's the one that it's fun to talk about somehow.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah.
To continue talking about, maybe. Let's see here. Nora was born in England and was turned during the Elizabethan era.
Sure.
So please get over this issue with the Eric Nora sex scene and in the future pay more attention before you freak out. It helps you deliver a more accurate show
Yes,
and
absolutely.
information that way.
And also, we should have been paying attention to the things that came out by HBO before the season came out, apparently, because that's where you learned that Nora was turned in the 18th century Elizabethan England.
I remember you dropping that link to me.
As opposed to actually in the show we watched, where she did not really make that clear. She did mention that Godric was both of their creator, but she didn't actually say one way or the other what her physical human lineage was. So I'll be more astute next time, as will you, Mike.
I will. And again, thank you so much for your input from the DC metro area. We look forward to more from you. Our last piece of fan feedback for this episode of the True Blood Transfusion, a sister show to the Fangbanger podcast over at fangbangerpodcast.com, which you can listen to our most recent episode by clicking the links right above us, or if you happen to be at the YouTube channel, you can hit the show notes link down below us here. Our last piece of feedback comes from Gary H. in Lassenbury, Connecticut. Gary writes, "I thought that the third episode was the strongest this season."
We would agree.
Totally agree there. But I can't believe how different the program is now compared to, say, season 1.
Once again, I don't think that anybody has an argument that the show has changed drastically since then.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even evoke the evolve thing. It is just drastically different.
It is just different.
And in fact, in our most recent episode, which you can, again, listen to by clicking the links right above us, we actually talk a little bit about that, where there are many people, including myself, I would love to see way more of the flavor of seasons 1 and 2 somehow infused into the program, and thankfully inside of episode 3 we get a ton of that.
Yeah. Although there is a little bit of wasted space.
A tiny bit.
Listen to the podcast.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give him a teaser? Give him a teaser.
A teaser of
a teaser of the, yes.
Of what I said in the podcast?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would say that one of the things I mentioned was I lament the Terry and Arlene story about how, once again, they've wasted 5 to 10 minutes of the show with a story that's going nowhere. Hopefully,
I'll be happy to call it a non-story.
A non-story.
It is
right
a non-story.
here. Mike says it's a non-story. They wasted that time.
All right,
I think
I'm out of
it would
here.
have been. I think
Okay,
it would have been.
well.
Yeah. Don't expect me to be here when you get back, and don't expect us to be here when you get back either, Terry.
I don't get it. Last season, I loved me some Terry. That entire storyline that they started to portray.
The Fort Belfleur thing, the Terry and eventually the Terry and Arlene and the Devil Baby eventually came to a resolution that was magnificent. Mm-hmm. The bit with putting Mavis to rest, we saw some incredibly great stuff, especially when they went to storm the house. Once again, they're wasting some incredibly talented actors and some really good characters on a storyline that is going nowhere that I personally do not care about.
Yeah. Gary continues inside of his feedback here. Remember when there were actual sides in the show? So,
Team
so-
Eric, Team Bill.
I guess that's what you're referring to. Or I'll tell you what, maybe werewolves and
Werewolves
vampires. And
Except
what?
we didn't have werewolves at the beginning of the first episode.
No, but we had vampires and humans. Oh, there we go.
We
There
did have
go.
vampires and humans.
And then it kind of bled over into everybody knows, and now it's just kind of become this muddled mess where, oh yeah, bon temps, where all the vampires and
Vampires and fairies
werewolves
and
and fairies
maenads and werewolves and werepanthers and...
So you hit it right on the head there, Gary. I hadn't even really thought of that. That's totally true. I'm also thinking that the show's content gets watered down the more we have more people and more creatures inserted.
Please listen to the podcast because this is something Mike and I discuss on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yeah.
The addition of characters to have more characters is not something I'm a fan of.
Right. And
Now,
once again,
inside this episode, this most recent episode, again, which you can listen to by clicking the link right above us or below us. There's a completely different element inside of here, inside of the character of Salome.
Well, right.
And that's good. It's an addition, a character that that is an addition to the cast. Thumbs up. But it's a character that brings over something that all of us are kind of somewhat familiar with, even if it's just a tiny little thread of what she's talking about inside the episode. You are familiar with what she's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that lends itself to bringing the character in, but you're already kind of familiar. That speaks volumes to character development inside of a show like True Blood, where it's already got a jillion characters anyway.
Right. Unlike the character of Terry's army buddy, whom I could care less about.
I just want to see him in another The Unit episode.
He can leave. He could leave this show and go back and resurrect the unit, and I would be happy with that.
Resurrect, perfect. Vampires in the Unit. How perfect would that be?
I wouldn't be good.
We could even have Robert Patrick back on the show as the T-1000.
As the T-1000.
Because then he would show up inside True Blood, and then he would
Right.
also show up inside the Unit Part 2.
Part 2.
Gary finishes out with time to dig those same threads and thoughts inside of Season 1 and Season 2 and get the stories told. Keep up the great show, guys. I love listening. Gary from Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Thank you very much.
Yes, an excellent piece of feedback. And remember, that's where we ask you to send your feedback to David and I here at the True Blood Transfusion, either in the notes, comment section down below us, or as always, you can go over to fangbangerpodcast.com, click on the contact button on the top right-hand side of the page, fill out the quick web form, and tell us what you think.
Go to iTunes and give us your reviews and your input there as well.
Yeah, there are a couple of new reviews there, and again, thanks for doing that for us. Again, we're looking for some salient feedback as well. Don't just tell us we got a great show or hit the 4 and you're done. Tell us why you listen to the show and why you think others should as well. Until next time on the True Blood Transfusion, the sister show of the Fangbanger Podcast over at fangbangerpodcast.com, I'm Mike Wilkerson.
And I'm David Curry.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.